Hello, everyone, and welcome to Paula's Soapbox Live. Today's guest is an actress, producer, director, and co founder of Felvin Productions. Now, if you are a regular viewer of this show, you probably remember that she was here in 2015 to discuss the web series That Reminds Me. Well, she's here today because she has some exciting new projects coming out, and it is my pleasure to welcome back to the show Jeannie Paul.
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for coming on. It's good to see you again.
you.
You
So,
have some congratulations are in the works. Not only did you have a new niece that was just born, you're getting married in a couple of months, right?
yeah, I met my niece 2 hours ago, and
Oh, wow.
Texas in my brother's old room. It's very exciting here. There's lots of trophies and books and all sorts of fun stuff.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm getting married in May, and this year has just been thing after thing after thing, and it's all really great stuff. But it's like, okay,
How are you juggling the wedding plans and all the stuff that you have in your professional life right now?
as best I can. That's I hope okay. I really hope okay. So I
Yeah.
like ask my mom and Jeremy's mom. Jeremy's my fiance, and they could give you a better sense of how I'm doing. I'm just like, all right, let's go. We got this thing, and
Tunnel vision.
I've got to just like get through everything and like come out alive. That's the goal.
Yeah. Um, well, as I said, you were here in 2015 to promote That Reminds Me, the web series, your web series. So has that finished wrapping or you
Yeah, we just did a season of it. It was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and I think all of us were really thrilled with how it turned out. And it's still playing in lots of
yeah.
places on Reverie TV, which is an LGBTQ geared community platform. It's also still on its own website. That reminds me, the series.com and Starable and a couple other distributors have it now, which is great. We
Yeah.
decided, I think, all three of us, well, there were actually four of us, but three of us were on the interview. We all
Yeah.
did it at a juncture in our lives where it was a really good fit for everybody. And then we all kind of got what we needed from what we did and went in, not all different directions. I still work a lot with Chelsea, and I'm really good friends with the other girls as well. But we all sort of figured out what we loved about it, what we didn't love about it, and where our niches were sort of in the business based on doing it. So it was a really good educational experience for all of us to figure out, do we want to do more of this? Do we want to, you know, do we like producing better, acting better, writing better, directing better, and where we wanted to end up in regard to sort of the business, as it were.
Yeah. You're producing another web series right now too. You're the pest.
Uh-huh. You're the pest. I'm the second producer. So that reminds me was sort of like my brainchild, as it were. And that
Yeah.
was that now I do a lot of producing for other people that are also trying to do similar things for their careers in terms of figuring out what they want and getting some exposure. And so I feel like it's a really, really interesting way and a good way to pay it forward. So I'm doing a lot of that now. So I'm working on a series that I actually just 5 minutes ago finished editing a pitch pack for, called I Don't Want to Die Alone. Very cute concept about a girl who is an Insta celeb with her husband, and they decide at the last second, they find out that basically she can't have kids very easily. She's got a diminished ovarian reserve, and he, who she thinks is very sensitive and wonderful, decides to divorce her on the spot. And that's actually the start of the series, where she's like, what? So she's in her early 30s, and she finds out that she has to have a baby right now, otherwise she's not going to be able to do it. But
Yeah.
her husband decides that he wants a divorce right at the same time. So it's a sitcom, but it's also just about her like self discovery and figuring out who she is in regard to all of these things, now that she's kind of left with, I have a choice to have a family right now or to go try to kind of save my Instagram influence that I had.
Yeah. That sounds really interesting. I think that's something that a lot of people can relate, maybe not to the instant celebrity aspect of it, but
Right.
to the
Right.
being in your 30s and suddenly everything has changed and you have to sort of start over. I think that a lot of people can probably relate to that. So,
And also, she sort of fell into this Insta celebrity thing, and who she is as a person versus who she represents herself is, sort of different. And they sort of explore that, and they take jabs at that, and that kind of world of the difference between you and you.
Yeah.
It's really interesting piece. And then You're the Pest, like you said, is really cute, simple premise, but really well done, about these two girls that take over their dad's pest control business when their dads pass, and the two of them are like very not suited to do this job at all. And
they're like night and day. They're different from each other.
one of them is the beauty queen, and the other one went to the police academy but decided that it wasn't for her. And so all of a sudden, these two women that are just kind of, interesting in their own ways, but also kind of butt heads. They're in charge of this business where they have to go kill other people's bugs.
Yeah.
Super cute series coming out in mid-April.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love doing that kind of stuff, especially if it's a person that has a really strong vision for what they want, and they have a really clear goal of what they want in their career or what they want to learn about their career, and a really, good eye and ear for content. So it's nice to be able to do some of that and also not be, the responsible party, as it were.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm there to be the support system rather than being like, okay, I'm in charge of this whole thing. I have to do this whole thing.
Well, both of these web series, they seem like they've got a lot of depth to them, a lot of meat. So there's a lot of substance to both of them. I look forward to watching them.
Yeah.
I saw the I guess the pilot for You're the Pest, and it looks really interesting.
Yeah. We shot the rest of the series last fall, and so they're gonna re-drop the pilot and then do the whole series. So you get it once a week, And
it's a new concept for sure. I mean, it's not something that you see all the time, and there's web series everywhere. So it's definitely an original idea.
Right. The other part of it is like, they have to be at least they have to be a good idea, but they also have to have an idea of how the execution is going to happen in order to be able to use, sort of my experience with all this stuff. So if somebody comes to me and says like, I want to make a web series, I'm like, great, go find an idea, work with the writer, and I'll help them kind of guide through the process. But you need to have something that's going to play. Otherwise, I can't help you get production, and I can't help you get distribution or financing or all the things that I, have come to be good at, PR, as it were. Because, I'm like, okay, you have to have an idea. There has to be a spark there. Otherwise,
it's not going to go anywhere.
Don't put yourself through that kind of, as hell, which it is. And, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of, blood, sweat, tears, a lot of personal energy, because it's always an extension of somebody's artistic. So when you get into things that are artistic, it's very personal.
Yeah.
So
and when you're talking about working on the web, it's still an ongoing thing. I mean, people are still trying to figure out how to navigate this whole world.
Right. There's not a carved out world for web series. It doesn't exist as like a thing. Okay, well, this is what you do with web series. Here's how you make money. Here's who sees it. No, it's just whatever. Wild West,
It really is. It's still developing, and it's changing all the time. It's different now than it was even 3 years ago when I interviewed you about That Reminds Me. So
yeah, and I think then we were sort of at the forefront of it, and now it's sort of a lot more common, especially where I am in New York, and I know LA is too. Is really a calling card for whoever is the principal artist.
Yeah.
So whoever is the mama, as it were, is the person that tends to benefit the most, where if they're the lead actor, if they're the director, if they're the lead producer and the writer, they're the one that gets the benefit of that, because they can show their managers and their agents and their whoever they're trying to show that they're a legitimate artist that should be working. That's the person that it tends to showcase the best as well.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that you're in New York, so what is it like filming a web series in New York? Do you ever have problems finding places to film the things you need?
It's always hard to find things, because you walk into two restaurants, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of them, you'll say, okay, I have $500. Can we shoot here for a day when you're running the restaurant and pay your staff? And one of them will be like, oh yeah, totally, come on in. Depending on what the other one would be like, no, our minimum charge is $5,000 per day. You're like, who gave you $5,000 per day for what?
Yeah. Who could afford that for a web series?
I think in another part of other parts of the country, if somebody were to film a web series and walk into a restaurant, they would be like, yeah, come on in, like they don't hear about this that often, but in New York, they're starting to get worn out on the whole deal.
Right, yeah. It'll cost you $5,000 a day.
5,000, and I'm like, I'm not Law and Order, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
And we moved to a restaurant hoping the answer is different, or, call them the favors, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, always friends. You're always calling in favors for this stuff.
Well, and it's good that, the web series world, there's a lot of connections. Everybody's kind of in the same boat.
Yeah.
So you probably do make some useful connections that way.
Totally.
Well, I mentioned that you are a co-founder of Felvin, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Productions.
You are. That is the simultaneously the best name and the dumbest name. So because people can't read what she's trying to read, it's the number 5 and then the letters LVIN.
Yeah.
And you look at it and you're like, Flivin, what?
Yeah.
So at first it was a big joke because there's 5 business partners and one of them, his name is Elvin. So, Elvin being the kind of guy he is when we're trying to pick a name, he's like, well, let's just call it the 5 Elvins, and we went, ha ha ha, sure. And then all of a sudden we were actually called the 5 Elvins. And all of us were like, what? We were kind of half kidding, but, it was sort of, okay, sure. So anyway, and then after that, we were kind of like, well, should we change the name or not? We got some business cards printed, and on the business card, there's a little parenthetical that says pronounced, and it spells it out in the way that it should spell or sound. Yeah. And it's become this epic conversation piece. We've been in business for about 2 years, and now anytime somebody has our business cards and they're trying to pronounce Felvin, they're like, what is this? And it becomes the intro into whatever the conversation is. So I'm like, maybe it was the smartest thing we ever did, or maybe it's the dumbest. Not really.
Well, people are going to remember it because it is unique, and it's something that they're going to look at that 5, and how do you, like you said, how do you pronounce this? So it helps that it's written out phonetically. So.
Right. So we've come to, we're the Felvins, the 5 Elvins. We've come to calling each other, I'm Jelvin, Jenny Elvin.
Yeah.
Is Delvin and Chelsea's Chelvin, So it's just, whatever. It's become a big joke, but, we're succeeding as a business and, so, hey, I'm in.
You can't ask for more than that.
Exactly.
And your brother is a co-founder of that as well.
Yes, and this is his room, as I said before, this beautiful room. And if I showed you the number of Megazords, actually, hold please. He's gonna hate me for this. Okay, wait. This looks like a really good Megazord to show you. Okay, so of course we don't live here anymore, but because we're visiting my niece. This is a Megazord.
Oh, okay.
So for anybody who wasn't the right age to know what a Megazord is, these are from Power Rangers. I was a little bit too old for Power Rangers, but like barely. Jonathan's right in the pocket. He's 5 years younger than me. So there's I would say about at least a dozen of these in this room. Just like,
oh, wow.
Like trophies, like around. And of course, he doesn't have to get rid of him.
It looks like a transformer.
Right, because he doesn't live here anymore. So he doesn't have to get rid of him because, my mom's not using it as office or anything. So
yeah.
So all the Megazords ever. So they just keep on coming. It's like
he probably is going to kill you for that. If he watches this interview later, he's probably going to kill you for that.
Probably walk in, right? He's in the house.
Oh, okay.
What's happening?
Did she just say Power Rangers? Did I just hear Power Rangers?
Yeah, he's like, wait, what?
Yeah.
So the only thing I knew about Power Rangers is that I had to know enough to make sure that I knew that I could communicate with him. So I didn't really know anything about Power Rangers, but I was the oldest child by way of the fact that, I had to basically be responsible for him and his toys and all of these other things. So I knew what it was, knew what he wanted, and I knew what kinds of stuff, and I knew like how much all of his Pokemon cards were worth.
Oh, yeah.
Stuff because he accidentally traded one once and it was for not enough,
Yeah.
Pokemon cards. And I'm like, really? I have to, okay, fine.
That's how you got your start with like producing. So
big sister duties of keeping track of Megazords and Pokemon cards.
Oh, well, I saw something else online that you had done. It was on YouTube, and I don't know if you're still doing that or not, but I think your brother was a part of that as well. Presence VR.
Yeah, so this is actually a little, it's very, very good research on your part. It's a branch of the company that I'm not as involved with as my brother is. It's part of Felvin, at least for now, until we ever incorporate it as its own company. But it's a virtual reality branch of the company. So originally, actually, Presence was going to be a completely separate company from Felvin, and they were started around the same time.
Mhm.
But because three of the people in Felvin were responsible for Presence, we ended up it all sort of ended up kind of mixing and coming together. So basically, Jonathan and one of the partners, Dove, are VR experts, as it were. So we do a lot of VR production as well.
Yeah.
So they started a little mini channel that's sort of mini VRs with one of the lower tech cameras called a Samsung 360. And basically, you can stick it in the middle of a room and it just tapes everything that's happening around the camera at the same time with the audio as well. So it's a really cool toy if you want to, if you ever want to sort of see the way that like a human would see if you're sitting in a swivel chair and you can turn around
Right.
and see everything that's going on at the same time, wherever you want to look, whichever direction you want to look. It's very cool.
That's a really smart idea too, because virtual reality is becoming bigger and bigger.
Yeah,
So
I'm skeptical about whether or not it's going to become as big or even close to as big as any of the other kind of mediums right now in terms of television, movies, 2D
yeah,
things. But I do think it's going to have its nice niche for the people that enjoy it. I know a lot of people our age, younger, really like this stuff, or my parents like couldn't be bothered because they get dizzy in the thing, that sort of.
yeah,
So it's just, I think for some people that are a little more tech forward or a little early adoptery, it's very cool. And some people that just, people that are a little less tech inclined, they're like, yeah, okay, movies are fun. Thanks.
yeah. um, so in college, I read that you were originally in pre med.
Oh yeah, I love it. I think it's like all this random stuff. No, I
Yeah,
love.
it is kind of random when you put it together.
I was pre med. My dad is a doctor. My mom's also a doctor, and they loved it. So, and I always sort of, my dad's one of those doctors that is always kind of about taking care of the people. And so when I grew up, the secretary at the school was my dad's patient, and the teacher at the middle school, and the music teacher, and anybody I would come across was my dad's. These random people were always my dad's patients. They always loved him. Oh my God, you're Dr. Paul's daughter.
Yeah,
So this is a huge honor to be Dr. Paul's daughter because everybody loves Dr. Paul.
yeah,
So I, kind of thought to myself, like, how cool would that be to be a doctor and be, the person that everybody feels like really took good care of them and have that kind of respect and that sort of thing. So I went to Brandeis for undergrad, specifically for the pre-med, because it was a top 5 pre-med school. Basically, if you got through the pre-med program, you had an 85% guarantee of getting into med school, which is a very, very high number. Um,
wow,
so I purposefully chose a school that had a pre-med track that was a pretty good guarantee that I was going to do well, if I, worked hard enough. And so my freshman year, I took my freshman chemistry class, and it was really taxing. I don't want to say hard. Hard is relative, but it was really taxing, and I really didn't enjoy it. Um, and I got through it with my, I think, A in lab and A minus in chem or whatever it was. And as long as you keep the A's, you get into school, and the better you do, the better. But you had to keep the grades, otherwise you weren't going to get your choice in medical school. So I worked really hard for the grades. And then my sophomore year, I was in organic chemistry, and I called my father. I'll let my mom do. Um, it's not my house. I called my father and I said, "How did you get through 12 years of this? This is so
yeah,
because so much." And and his answer was, "I liked it."
yeah,
And I was like, "What?" And he was
yeah,
like, "I really liked it." And I was like, "Well, didn't you go into this for the people?" And he's like, "Yeah, I went into the people, but I also really liked science." the science. And I was like, okay. So I had my big, first big college existential crisis. And I was like, oh, I'm horrible. Like, Dad, like, I hate this. It's not that I wasn't okay at it. I was fine at it.
Yeah.
And getting through, but I just didn't love it. I didn't even really like it. Um, and so I had been taking theater classes to sort of blow off steam, um, in in the meantime, because I was spending all of my time focusing on getting the grades for science. And so I had already kind of racked up half of a theater major by the time I quit pre-med, because it
Yeah.
was literally my out. And so I had decided at that point that I need to graduate on time. So I was going to finish the theater major and just kind of do that until I could take other classes in other departments and just see what I might like. And I started just taking theater, and kind of realized that that wasn't not a choice. Um, I guess I grew up in a house of doctors, and theater wasn't frowned upon. We went to musicals in Dallas. We did all the cultural stuff here, so we loved theater. We all did, but it didn't seem like a legit choice in my own head anyway. In
Yeah,
the
it's not the practical choice.
like, okay, go be a doctor, go be a lawyer, go be a teacher, go be, anything was a legit choice. And that never occurred to me as a legit choice, because Dallas, it doesn't, it's not a theater scene here. It's not part
Yeah.
of the culture. It's just like a nice fun thing that you do once every few weeks. So I was sort of figuring out, what to do about that. And by the time I graduated, I could have had two theater majors. Like, yeah, by the time I figured out that that was an option, I was like, this is an option? What? And I just was like, yeah, let's go. Let's go. Cause I already loved it. That's why I was there. And so I
Yeah.
shifted gears and sort of did that. And I didn't decide to be an actor until almost the very end of the of Brandeis. I thought, again, practically speaking, stupid idea. I could be an arts administrator, I could be a director, I could be, something that isn't acting. That's stupid. Um,
Yeah.
Again, it's like all self stuff. Like, nobody put that in my head. I'm just like, this is how I think. Okay, you have expectations. You were going to get good grades in school. You were going to college. This is what I kind of knew for myself was going to happen.
Yeah.
So I ran into a woman, that was on a show in the 70s and 80s called Knots Landing.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to ask you about that. She was your mentor.
And she ended up becoming my mentor. And she said, "Are you going to New York next year, or LA?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Why not?" And I said, "Because it's stupid." I don't, like, I didn't have an answer for her. I was just like, because that's not what people do. They go to, do
Yeah.
life jobs. So I just figured, I'd use my theater major and, like, go into something that involved public speaking, or, who knows?
Yeah.
I didn't know what I wanted. And she sort of said that, and she gave me kind of permission to do it. And so I started auditioning on the weekends, my senior year of school, and I booked something for right after graduation in North Jersey, suburb of New York, and moved here to start rehearsing Funny Girl, which was the show that I did first.
Yeah.
So that's how I ended up doing it, for no real reason other than, like, I kept thinking that that was a bad idea, and then people kept saying, "Why not?"
Yeah.
Yeah. And I kind of kept getting driven to it, but not realizing that I was so focused on the thing that I was being driven away from, that I wasn't really focused on the thing that I kept being driven back to.
Yeah.
So
So now,
did
did you
you
take
take
theater in high school?
I did. That was what I did for fun. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I was in a couple of the high school plays, and I loved theater. I even remember back when I was a kid, I wanted to do theater because my friend Rachel was doing theater, and my mom said to me, "If you do theater, you have to drop X." I don't remember what X was, but it was probably volleyball or something else I was doing, because it conflicted, and I didn't want to drop whatever X was, so I didn't end up doing theater. But I remember wanting to do it a lot. And I did a lot of music and choir and stuff like that when I was a kid. So that I always had done. And then theater in high school was, I switched from choir to theater because I was waiting for high school because they had theater. I was like, I want theater. That's what I want to do. And then loved it in high school. But again, always thought it was just like an elective that I loved, you know, and I
Yeah.
kept, I always loved it. I just, that was never where I was looking.
Yeah. Okay, I want to pause just for a second. I'm getting an echo, so I'm going to have you turn your volume down just a little bit to see if that fixes it. Okay, let me see. Yeah, I think that's better. Yeah, my voice was reverberating back in my ear. It was weird.
Did that help?
I think that's better.
Okay, hang
Yeah.
on. We'll close this door in case there's extra sound or something. Okay, let's try that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
That's it. That was the whole story.
Yeah. Well, something else, going back to your college days, you actually started something called 24-hour musical.
Yeah. Oh my God. Wow. You're good at this.
And they're still doing that, right?
Yeah, I did. So this was a funny thing in school, and I guess I was always really good at coming up with ideas for projects and just doing them, and kind of just yanking at anybody and everybody along with me that would play. But I did this thing called the 24-hour musical at Brandeis when I was a junior, and I basically decided it would be this fun thing. So there was a guy, his name's Tom Heller, and he was going to do a 24-hour play thing at Brandeis. And I thought, oh, that's so cool. I'm going to go do that thing. And then for some reason it fell through or something happened. And I was like, well, I'll take it over. You know, I mean, there was something to take over because he hadn't done it, but the idea seemed really cool. So I went to one of the theater clubs at school and I said, you know, can we do a 24-hour theater thing? And they said, yeah, sure, why not? So we got the theater for a day. And at the time, I really didn't know plays very well. Again, this is all kind of on the heels of I didn't know my theater until I graduated school because I wasn't doing theater um,
Yeah.
as a thing. So I knew musicals because that's what I grew up watching. I didn't know straight theater, so I didn't have any clue what kind of play we could produce in 24 hours or like anything about that. But I knew musicals. So I said, well, there used to be this highly illegal Russian site that published all the librettos for musicals online. So you could just rip off a libretto or like a script for a musical for free before the internet was like more regulated and more of this.
Yeah.
So we all knew about it because, you know, it was college and we used it for scenes and stuff in class and just because it was fun. And so I literally ripped a musical off of the Russian site. I looked up the law and like how, you know, if you're allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do this. And there's like a clause about education being an acceptable thing as long as you don't charge money, and also parody makes things a little better. So I kind of went through with the script of it and like made it a little extra parody-esque, and it was inevitably going to be parody anyway because we only produced it in 24 hours. Like it was going to be ridiculous.
Yeah.
Totally, there's no way it wasn't going to be a hot mess. But so we basically like figured out all the rules so that we weren't breaking any laws, and then we basically cast, costumed, set, music, everything, a musical in 24 hours. And so we casted at like 8 o'clock the night before and rehearsed all night, the whole night, and through the next morning, and like built the costumes and built all the set pieces and everything, and taught everybody their music and, you know, all the script stuff. They were allowed to have the script in their hands if they didn't know the lyrics. And then it played 8 o'clock the next night in the campus center, and we were very like surprised to find that the place was like the entire place was packed and we couldn't even like get people into the theater because we did it right after orientation in September, so all the freshmen were in the show, and
Yeah.
freshmen, and like nobody has any friends yet, so everybody's your friend. So like they were like, I'm in a show, come see it. And so like the whole dorm would come with them, and we were like, how do you get people to these shows? By the time you're a junior, you can't get anybody to do anything. But like, so they all came with their friends and their friends' friends and their friends' friends, and we did the show, and it was a wreck, and it was hilarious. And the first year we did a parody of Wicked. So
I bet that was fun.
Great. And Wicked was pretty popular at the time, so it was pretty easy to teach people the music because half of the people already knew it.
Yeah.
So, that kind of thing. And so it was great. So we had a blast. So the next year we did it again. And we did, so Brandeis is famous for being a Jewish founded school. Not everybody at school is Jewish, but, as a Jesuit school would be Jesuit, or, Brigham and Young is Mormon, Brandeis is Jewish founded. So the next year we did Avenue Jew. We didn't do Avenue Q, we did Avenue Jew. And we rolled like all of these like stupid Jewish jokes, which half of the people got and half of the people appreciated.
Yeah.
And basically the puppets, and I wish I like had a picture or something to show you because it's hilarious, but the puppets weren't puppets. They made the people into puppets. So I had a talented costume designer friend, Brittany Ehrlich is her name, and she basically made people into puppets. So like they had googly eye goggles and like fur all over, like full body onesie puppet things. It's hilarious. So
that is so clever.
So by the second year, we were legitimately a parody, whereas the first year it was like maybe.
Yeah.
And then I graduated, and I passed it along to whoever was interested. I think the girl's name was Cassie, and I think she did it the next year. And I graduated, and that's the last I heard of it. And then 5 or 6 years later, I was at a family dinner, and my cousin Jacob had brought his girlfriend Sarah home for the holiday. And Sarah had gone to Brandeis. And so we chatted about Brandeis and whatever, and we're chit-chatting, and I said, "Did you ever do any theater?" And she says, "No, I didn't really do theater, but I did this thing, the 24-hour musical." And I was like, what? And she said, "Yeah, this thing." And I was like, "Hold the phone. Tell me more about this 24-hour musical."
Yeah.
Years later, I found out that it's like huge campus event that like everybody wants to be a part of it. They can't get enough seats for the thing. Like it's ridiculous. It's like a huge like campus tradition. And I was like, holy cow. And then a few years later, I saw they were having the 10-year anniversary, hashtag I'm old. But and I was like, this is insane. So yeah, that's the 24 musical. So I'm very proud of it. And all of the friends that I dragged in that were there with me for that first one are all like so thrilled that this is still a thing, because we worked so ridiculously long and hard to get this thing to happen, just to like do a stupid project, But it was so fun. It was like, it's one of those things where you insta bond because everybody's under the gun, and like
right.
it was like theater camp for a day and a half. It was just epic.
That's so cool. You have a legacy then now.
I have a legacy called the
You
brand.
do. Already you have a legacy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's talk about Dead Layer, this
Okay.
short film that you co-produce.
Yes.
Stars Cameron Douglas, Michael Douglas's son. So tell me about that.
So that's another one of these, like I say, I say this specifically because I really, as a producer, I really love working on projects that are directly sort of passion project adjacent. Like I could theoretically produce commercially and what, but I really enjoy doing this more. And it's usually a smaller scale, but it usually means that it's really launching somebody's career, or it's really, a specific vision that somebody has that I help them sort of execute. And part of the reason I do that is because so many people came to my rescue when I originally did this for That Reminds Me. So one of my friends that I knew through the acting community, called Carter Winter, um, had this idea for a movie. And I said, okay, shoot. And he told me what it was about. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. It's about a kind of a graffiti underworld, and about a guy. And originally it was squarely about two guys that are sort of the dichotomy of each other. One is somebody who wants to kind of graduate from that world and kind of be an artist in the real world, and not kind of deal with the drugs and the sex and the things that he enjoyed at one point but are a little past him at this point. Versus one guy who can't get out and won't get out of that world. um, and sort of explores the different types of people that end up in the graffiti art world, whether they're artists that this is their medium, versus people that are just people that go in and tag something and they just put their name on it and run away, where it's not really an art, it's more of a vandalist type of thing.
Yeah.
And there's a huge distinction between characters and people in these worlds, because some of these people legitimately are art driven. Banksy, people, Banksy is the one people hear about, where he's a legit artist that happens to be a graffiti artist versus somebody who just does graffiti, and kind of the dichotomy of that. And so I thought that was really interesting. And then at some point when we were developing the script and the concept, we were developing into a short in order to kind of move to a feature later on.
Mm-hmm.
And sort of, developing the pitch packs and all of that. We found out that Cameron Douglas, who knew Carter through a mutual friend of theirs who ended up being one of our producers as well, he's one of the executive producers, Dacian Thurman, was actually interested in playing one of these roles, the role of the guy who's kind of on his way out. Um, and and so of course Carter was like, yeah, Cameron Douglas, like, of course. And
yeah,
knew Cameron from an acting class, so he knew Cameron was really talented as well, other than, outside of being, Cameron Douglas.
right.
And so we discussed kind of getting him into the fold, and he was great from the get-go. He is very talented. And this story mildly reflects some of his own experiences, so I think he felt like he could really dig into the part. And we ended up crafting the story to make sure he changed some of the lines and things to make it feel more out of Cameron's voice rather than just nebulous paper person. um, and so we ended up shooting the short film, and it just finished post, I think, last Sunday maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Now Carter is and submitting to festivals, and so I think the first festival they submitted to is Cannes, and that's a we hope.
That's a yeah.
I mean, it's possible. It's very well done. The cinematography is beautiful. The story is well told. Cameron is great. The supporting cast is fantastic, and so I think it's got as good a shot as anything. So I'm hoping, and better even, because of the quality of all of the pieces. So I'm hoping it does really well. And the goal, I think, is to sell the short as a proof of concept for the feature, and to get an option for the feature film so he can make the full feature idea that he had back when he came to me and he says, I want to make this film.
Yeah. And the name Dead Layer comes from an artist term, right?
Yeah, I don't want to get this wrong, but I think it refers to, and I might be wrong, so I'm sorry guys if I get this wrong. I think it refers to like the layer under the paint. If you fresh coat paint
Mm-hmm.
under it. I'm gonna look this up. It's gonna drive me nuts, but I think it's, if you paint over the layer under it is the dead layer. Um,
Okay.
I'm kind of just curious to know if I remembered all that correctly. I knew at some juncture.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. But yeah, it's very well done. It's interesting because when he first pitched it to me, I thought to myself, this isn't really my thing, and I was kind of thinking like, I want to help him, and I know he's really super talented, so I wanted to be part of that for him. So I
Yeah.
kind of said like, not sure. And then I read the script and I started doing a little more research into the world, and I realized it's just really kind of a cool concept. It's a really cool, gritty underworld that these people really have the best of human motivations, the best and the worst, and they live life sort of on the everything's amped.
Yeah.
And that really does always make for a good story if it's well written, because we walk around and we do our lives, and we're chatting and whatever, but we
Yeah.
don't, it's not dramatic. You don't write a story about a normal day conversation. Everything's very heightened, and this world naturally is already very heightened. A lot of these people do a lot of drugs, a lot of hard drugs, a lot of cocaine, a lot of sex, a lot of illegal activities. So there's a lot of, okay, am I going to get caught right now, when they're
Yeah.
ag something or when they're going to paint. And so they really live life on the edge, and it really makes for an interesting set of characters because of it.
Yeah, and I think this is a world that most people don't know anything about.
And I
You
think
know?
they like it better that way. And
Yeah.
as I've gotten to know the world better, they do. And
Mhm.
you'll see it if you ever see the movie. One of the guys' names is James, and he always insists, no, it's not James, it's Sis. he's Scissor, Sizzer, because they don't want to use their real names because it's part of the culture. It's like, you know, I'm Jay, you know, or whatever their tag name is, whatever their name is their identity in that world, and they have a really separate identity in the real world. Okay, here we go. Dead layer. Gray underpainting. The gray layer is also called the dead layer because it looks dead. Thanks for Wikipedia.
That makes sense.
No color. Life comes to the painting after this layer with the color layers. Okay, so they refer to it as the first layer of paint that they do that's gray with the gray tones, and then they put color on top of it.
Okay.
Not quite right on my part, but it is that first layer of paint, so a little bit right. But
okay. You were close.
I was close. I was like, it's the underlayer, but I thought of it as it getting retired as you paint, where it's actually not. It's the basis for the colors to come out. So it's like the whitewash or like the baseline.
And you have a cameo in this film too, right?
I do. I actually don't. I think they
really.
So there was
it got cut.
Yeah. I wasn't in this film to begin with, but I think they wrote this little tag scene at the end where, I don't know, spoilers, but basically something happens at the end, and the main characters run away, and then me and this other guy come in. We're hipsters, and we kind of look, and we're like, what's going on, you know? And there's a little tag ending, and when we shot it, I remember we shot it in like 5.5 seconds, and I look at my friend that was the other actor, and I was like, they're cutting this. There's no way. But it was fun being a hipster for 5 minutes. No, I think they realized they needed somebody, and at some point, you know, Carter turned to me and he's like, "You want to do it?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So no, I'm not in it, but I was in it, but I am not in
it. So I noticed something on your IMDb page called the Blue Mountain. Is that something that you can or want to tell us about right now?
I don't actually know too much about Blue Mountain. It's so I'm thinking we'll probably end up talking about this, but I worked on a show called The Looming Tower, Blue, and we'll save that. But so one of the gaffers on The Looming Tower, one of the people that does electrics and light, actually called me to play a small role in his film that he was producing on the side. You know, we're all freelance and different projects. That was called Blue Mountain. It's a story about loosely based on a true story of him and experiences that he had with his parents, and one of the experiences he had with his dad when they went to Blue Mountain. And I in that film I played his mom, even though he is 13, 14, 15 in the movie, even though the adult version of him is my age, but the character that he wrote to be himself. So I played the mom in the movie. So it was really fun. We had a nice fun shoot day at LaGuardia Airport, because there's a scene with me and him where he's flying to go be with his dad at Blue Mountain, and we're mid mother-son fight in the movie, and so that's the scene that I'm in. So it was really fun. It was extra flattering because he just decided to hire me watching me work on another show. Like, he saw me do the work on another show, and I didn't audition. Sometimes you don't audition, but this was kind of like a cool thing because he called me purely based on the fact that he was doing lights and electric on the Looming Tower, which I was working on. He was like, "Come do this thing for me." And I was like, "Yes, sure. Yeah. Happy to. Yay." So, yeah.
So the Looming Tower is it just premiered on Hulu last week.
Yeah, it premiered under a week ago. It's what today is.
It's the 5th. So yeah,
last Wednesday.
Yeah.
And, that's my big job right now. Well, we already taped it, so we'll see if it continues to be a big job. But I'm a regular character on the Looming Tower show, which is my sort of big job from this year. And it's doing very well. All the reviews are really great. Most of them talk about how great the cast is, and I'm like, I know you're not talking about me. You're totally talking about Jeff Daniels. Yeah. I'm going to take that. I'm going to take that compliment and be like, yes, please. Thanks.
Yeah. Yes. The cast is outstanding.
So far, so good. I've seen the first 3 episodes. I got a preview of the pilot at the premiere in New York a week before last week, and it's just really good. And I'm just thrilled that they did such a beautiful job. And it's a tough subject. It's about 9/11. It's about the trials that happened afterward, and how basically the concept of it is, and it's based in true events, that the CIA and the FBI missed 9/11 attacks because they were too busy up their own butts trying to figure out, what they were or weren't doing, and they weren't working as a team. And what happened, the show Tenants and also the book that it's based on, The Looming Tower, won a Pulitzer because it effectively reported this stuff after it happened. But basically the concept is the government missed it because they were too busy, taking care of their own. So it's kind of stupidly relevant a little bit, but at the same time they did a really nice job of sort of dramatizing it in a way that's at least mildly palatable, because I think with 9/11 we were all alive and we were all around for that, and like nothing's really that palatable. It's just, it was rough.
Mm-hmm.
Who was old enough to really remember what happened and how. So so the fact that they treated it with such reverence, and they really effectively turned a Pulitzer Prize winning nonfiction into kind of a true to life homeland. So it's dramatic and it's interesting in terms of its watchability as a television, as entertainment, but it's also based in what theoretically happened. People can argue if it happened that way or didn't happen that way, but so it's just a really interesting story. And I remember when I was on set, I shot it last summer between like May and October, I think. Everybody was just very reverent, and everybody was very much a team player, and you got on set and you did your thing, and everybody was lovely to each other. There was no internal drama, at least as far as things I could see. And sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. But it was the whole thing was treated with the utmost respect and delicacy, because I think everybody knew, what we were doing. And people like myself who, I auditioned for that show and I got cast in that show, and then I didn't know too much about it until I got scripts. I read the scripts and I went, oh wow, and I just kind of went, okay, this is wow, and wow in the it's really well done, and wow in the oh god, okay, this is tackling 9/11 stuff in a major way. So I'm hoping that people receive it the way that it's intended, which is just to do a really, really solidly good representation of what arguably happened, and they made a docudrama, so it's also entertaining as well. So it's not just you're going to eat all your vegetables right now.
Right? Yeah, it's not just, they're not just regurgitating facts, and
they're not shouting political memes at you. They're not like this guy's fault or this guy's fault, or they're not doing any of that. They're just sort of, they're taking kind of like an observatory, as it were, look of what's happening, and an observational look. And there is clearly, at least in the first couple episodes, there's clearly a good guy and a bad guy. I don't know how that's going to play out, but you kind of get the sense that it's just sort of everything missing each other at the wrong time, and and just a series of events that led to something horrible. And the only thing that sucks is you want to root for the good guys at some points, and you're like, yes, he won that one. And then if you're my fiance Jeremy, he turns to me and he goes, well, the towers are still gonna fall.
Yeah.
Like, thanks for ruining my moment.
Yeah.
He's like, well, I know what the ending's gonna be. And I'm like, you're so smart.
Yeah. Well, and I like that it addresses the events that sort of led up to 9/11, some of the terrorist attacks that led up to 9/11 that, they weren't in the news a lot at that time. So I like that it addresses that, because I had forgotten about some of the stuff that happened, because it was like I think in Nairobi, the attack on the embassy, I had forgotten about that, because it wasn't something that, I don't think that it was well talked about on the news that much. Well, and it seemed like it was something far away, and
Yeah, I remember that time. I mean, I was younger, so I wasn't really watching the news. I was like 14, 13, whatever.
Yeah.
I remember thinking to myself, hearing a little bit of Al Qaeda stuff, like a little, and a little bit of, and I kept thinking to myself, like maybe in my innocence at that age, but I kept thinking to myself, wait, are they targeting like Christians? Or are they targeting white people? Are they targeting Americans? Like, what's the target?
Yeah.
When they sort of unravel the pieces of this puzzle, as it were, it was pretty clearly Americans, but we didn't know that as Americans. You think of these kind of cultural wars, and who's the enemy? Is it the Western world? Is it this country, that country, this religion, that religion? What is it? And I remember thinking to myself, well, no, it couldn't be Americans. They must be like Rage Against the White People or something, whatever the thing was. And I thought to myself, like, that doesn't make any sense that it's specifically Americans. Why is it Americans? Like,
Yeah.
why would they care about Americans? And then 9/11 sort of happened, and I sort of, I kind of went, oh, like legitimately, it was, they didn't attack Paris, they didn't attack London, they attacked us.
Yeah.
And so I remember not fully paying attention, but thinking to myself, like, oh, they couldn't be possible, it couldn't be just like just Americans, like we just must be part of the thing, whatever the
Yeah.
so it was an interesting, especially now that I'm old enough to kind of look back, and they do a lot of talking in the series, and they kind of allude to, it was the same time where Clinton got caught with Monica Lewinsky.
Yeah.
They allude
That
to
was all over the news. So that's,
in the news,
that's where everyone's focus was. So,
and the idea that like it's to some degree, circumstantially, but it's smoke and mirrors a little bit, and they, I'm sure they weren't doing it on purpose, but
yeah.
but we're looking over here while this other thing is growing and prospering, that over here where nobody cares, and we're not paying any attention at all to something that we actually should be paying attention to because it's a mounting problem.
Yeah. So did you read the book, The Looming Tower, before you shot the series?
Yeah. Oh, it's a rough book.
Is it? I bet it's intense.
Yeah. And what's interesting, and I don't think they do much of this in the series, although I have to go back and read or watch the series. The book starts with a really interesting backlog of can I explain this, history of the movement in Saudi Arabia. It's not in the series. So if you're inclined to read these kind of books, there's a really fascinating chunk of this book that isn't represented. And it starts all the way back, I think, in 1930 with the founding, and they're little snippets. It's not very long read in terms of catching up with it, but and where Osama bin Laden's family came from, where their money came from, what the impetus for the kind of mounting American hatred was coming from. It's all actually in the book, which is really fascinating because you think, like, why us? When something like that
Yeah.
happens, you're not fully apprised. And they had a very clear why, whether it's justified or not, no, never. But at the same time, um, there was a long history that spanned back pre-World War II even, that was mounting hatreds and tensions against the Western world and eventually America. And a lot of it's tied into the Palestinian Israeli conflict. A lot of it's tied into just the 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 play out of World War II. There's all sorts of, hindsight's 2020, and you can sort of, track it back. And that's actually what I found most interesting about the book. I actually read the scripts before I read the book, so I knew what was happening in the television series before I knew what happened in the book. But I really loved that they did a nice little historical chunk, nice couple of chapters about just why this could how this could have happened, and where the history of the hatred and what's happening kind of came from.
Yeah. Well, it's a very interesting series. I watched the first 3 episodes because as of now, that's all it's been released. I think they're going to do a new episode every Wednesday. So,
Yeah, it's really good. I was a little, on a personal note, I was a little afraid that I was just going to get overwhelmed by the whole thing.
yeah.
Because I'm hypersensitive to that kind of stuff. But it's just really, really good, really well written. It's kind of Homeland with a little bit of sort of an Aaron Sorkin feel to it. You know,
Yeah.
everything witty banter, and it just did a really beautiful job. And I'm very proud to be a small part of such a large and amazing project.
Well, like you said, the reviews seem to be pretty good. It is a powerful series, and it's, you watch one episode, you want to see the next, and you want to see what happens next. Even though you know what the end result is, you still want to see
We're
how
all
it
going
plays out.
the runaway train, yeah.
Yeah. But I think you mentioned in another interview that there were some lighter moments on set, especially with your character and the other characters that are like you, because you're CIA agents and there's a bunch of women.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're referred to in the show as the Manson sisters
Yeah.
because the boss is a man with a really creepy beard, so they talk about him as Charles Manson. And so it's interesting because by the time you really meet my character and the group of characters that I am in that I act with in the show, it's kind of it's kind of more of the part of the series where you're starting to understand why things are happening and where the disconnects are.
Mm.
Because our characters really aren't part of the action, and even in we shot every episode that we shot in New York City in a soundstage in the CIA office. So these people really never left the office, and at least in the show, but they were, it was all behind computer screens and all research and all planning from behind the scenes. So you really, once they start to unravel what went wrong, you start to see some of the people and some of the places where the power was held, which is very fascinating. And this next episode 104, I believe, is a really it really brings in the characters that I'm the character that I play, but also the women that play the same similar character to me in the same group. It brings in sort of their angle on it.
Yeah.
um, to this point really haven't seen the CIA much. The CIA is sort of the antagonist at the moment.
Yeah.
Kind of, they kind of stay the antagonist, but not thoroughly. The point isn't like the FBI was the good guy and the CIA is the bad guy. That's not the point of the show. The point of the show is to show that everybody's at odds, that everybody's goals are kind of a little at odds with each other, and people's lack of communication is preventing the knowledge to be utilized properly. Not that one guy was the bad guy or the other guy was the bad guy. That everybody was sort of meant well, but also had very, very different opinions about how the way things should be handled.
Yeah. Well, on a lighter note, you also have another an episode of a series coming out. I think Thursday. Yeah, Thursday.
Thursday.
Jessica Jones on Netflix, the other streaming service.
Yes, I love that you say on a lighter note, because anybody that's seen Jessica Jones is like, nope.
I haven't seen Jessica Jones, so there you go.
To be fair, anything is lighter than 9/11.
Right? Yeah.
No, yeah.
Yeah, when you're dealing with that universe, it is like, because it's fictional. So,
It's like, not all, it's not 9/11. We're fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I'm excited. I have like a little cameo in the premiere of the second season, and I hadn't seen the first season. So the interesting story about Jessica Jones is they use code names when they're casting and staffing for Jessica Jones. They did it as well for Looming Tower, but it wasn't as secretive. I didn't know what show I was going to be on, and pretty much until I showed up. I knew I was hired by Marvel. I knew that I signed a contract with Disney and Marvel. I knew that.
Yeah.
But I didn't know which of the shows that it was going to be. I didn't know if it was going to be Defenders or Iron Fist or any of these other shows, because they all have code names. So I had a sneaking suspicion based on their code name. But I had no clue, really. It could have been a new show. It could have been anything. So I didn't really find out what the show was until I got there, because once I got there, I realized they were actually in the second season, which meant that it had to be one of the shows that had already had a first season.
Right.
And so I figured it out pretty quick. Excuse me. But so because I didn't know, I didn't go back and binge the season because I just didn't know. So I went in and I shot it completely blind, which is a little. I always prefer to read the source material, always, or watch it, just because, like, what kind of world it is, but I, relied on my director and the other actors and everybody that was there to, make sure that I was on this, in the same world that they were. Um, but no, it was really fun. It was a 1 day shoot. It was really quick, but it's a very cute scene. It's like I play a goofball. I do that very well. Uh, so it's very fun. And then I actually shot Jessica Jones before Looming Tower, because it was the first episode. It was like last March or something. So it was a long
yeah.
time. And yeah, and the whole season's being dropped on Thursday, so you don't have to watch very long to find me, which is nice. But you'll be able to see all of them on Thursday.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that whole like Marvel.
Yeah.
I know people who are very like, but that's not really, yeah. So I would have to read through the source material, like you said, to know what I was doing.
Right. Well, I assume that they wouldn't have cast me if I didn't fit. So there was, the thing about some of these different shows is if you're coming in as a guest, guest actor to a show that already exists, you want to, always as an actor, you want to play on the same level so that you're jumping into the show as part of their world. So, if the show's a little soapier or whatever, you want to make sure that that's how you're treating it, or if it's a little more realistic and grounded, or if it's whatever.
Yeah.
So it's always a little nerve-wracking when you don't know what's going on, because you're like, how can I match this world if I don't know what this world is?
Yeah.
And with Looming Tower, I was part of the creation of the world. So, I wasn't, it wasn't a huge intellectual exercise creating this world, but I was able to, see what other people were bringing to the table and talk to people and, read through things and whatever. So this other one, I was like, God, I hope I'm doing this right. Yeah.
Well, The Looming Tower, as I said, it's streaming on Hulu now. The first 3 episodes are on. It's a mini series, so it's 10 episodes or something.
Yep.
Okay, 10 episodes. Every Wednesday, new episode until I guess that would be 7 weeks or something.
It's over.
Until it's over. And Jessica Jones season 2 premieres on Netflix March 8th, and that's pretty much it, unless you have something to add.
I think that's enough for anybody. I'm like, wow, we talked about so much stuff. No, yeah, it's just it's a big year in entertainment for sure, especially for women.
Yeah.
I'm actually interestingly in Looming Tower, which is very male heavy, and I kind of went, oh, like there's just not a lot of women characters in the show, but
Yeah.
We're seeing more and more, so that's really excellent. And especially in terms of self-producing and that sort of thing, that's growing. The content is everywhere, and there's so much good stuff out there because people are able to break out of the mold of the network. And this is, you have to make it 22 minutes or you have to make it 44 minutes, and and the structures are kind of being shattered, and everything's everywhere. So we're finding that all this great content is just everywhere. And the question is, like, how do you sort through it and how do you keep track? And the answer is you do the best you can, I guess. But there's just so much good stuff out there. It's like a really good time to be a producer or even an actor. It's just so much work, which is really wonderful.
Yeah. Well, keep us updated on, all the other stuff that you're doing, the Dead Layer, your web series that you're producing. I would love to have you back on sometime to talk about some of that other stuff too, when it gets time to do that. So
I'm sure at least one of those girls that are running their web series would love to talk to you, if not me.
Absolutely. Just, put my name out there. So
yeah, I know at least one of them. Like, she's ready to go, and she's so funny, this girl.
Yeah. Well, I would love that. So so I have all of your social media links, all that stuff underneath this interview, so people can click on those and keep up with what you're doing. So but it's nice to have you back. I hope you come back again at some point.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's good to see you and talk to you, and
good to see you too. Congratulations on everything. I'm very happy for you.
Thanks, and I'm thrilled that you're still going with this.
Yeah, I know. It's been 5 years.
Yeah, it's insane, but amazing. Like,
yeah,
that's so great.
Well, Jeannie Paul. So you guys be sure to check out the Hulu series, obviously the Looming Tower. It's definitely worth your time, and check out some of the web series that she's producing. So,
awesome.
Thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you.